A little while back, I made a poll in the community tab asking what people thought the biggest issues were in the hobby today, and I gave 5 choices to choose from: shill bidding, pumping and dumping, card trimming, fake card slabs, and other. Shill bidding got the most votes with 40% of them, and I will be making a video about shill bidding next because I absolutely agree that that is something that I've come to realize is much more pervasive than I had previously realized. But in this video, I wanted to talk about the one that got the second most amount of votes on the poll: pumping and dumping. And in particular, I want to talk about why I am much less concerned about this particular issue than I am about the others. Alright, first let me define what I mean by pumping and dumping, because it seems that some people do define it slightly differently from each other at times, which can create some confusion and some problems. I would say that pumping and dumping is essentially the act of purposefully building up hype around a certain market or product or player or brand or whatever, and then as soon as that manufactured hype has caused values to increase, then you offload all of what you have in order to profit from the hype that you've manufactured that's really fake. It's a form of market manipulation, but there are certain things that pumping and dumping are not, and that way too often get talked about as if they are pumping and dumping. Pumping and dumping is not someone merely talking about a new set of cards they've recently found out about or recently started learning more about. Pumping and dumping is not someone sharing what they're doing in some of their plays in less mainstream market spaces just to share what they've been doing. Pumping and dumping is not merely reflecting on the movements of different market spaces to get a better sense for what's going on in them and what's causing those movements. But in the hobby today, when pumping and dumping is discussed, at least in content creator space, pumping and dumping seems to be a catch-all phrase for all of these things and an effort to point fingers at people who 99.9% of the time are just doing their thing and talking about this or that without any nefariousness going on at all. Are there people who are doing it with more nefarious motivations? Sure. Is it a big issue in the context of the hobby at large? I don't think so. And it's much less of an issue than some of the other bigger real issues that are really there. Shill bidding, for example. There's a few reasons I think pumping and dumping is not such a big issue. For one, within the realm of sports cards specifically, the things that are most likely to influence the market are macroeconomic factors like the conditions of the economy at large and the happenings of the sport itself. These two factors are going to speak way louder than the voices of any influencers within the hobby. Way louder. The sports card influencers, as much as I hate to use that word, actually have relatively small platforms in the scheme of things. At least small when considering whether they actually have a voice that could move an entire market. The only possible exception to that may possibly be Gary Vee, but even he is only more peripherally involved with sports cards these days, so I don't really think even he could do it within the realm of sports cards anymore. And even if there is someone who has a large-ish platform, at least as far as sports card content is going, and who may end up opening up some awareness about some niche thing that others haven't been aware of before, and that area does see some movement as a result, so what? I had a great time learning and exploring a bit about Marvel cards a few months back. It wasn't a realm I've chosen to really do much within since then, but I waded in a bit and even spent some time digging into the history of Marvel cards, which I found fascinating. It was a realm that I had gotten interested in from just kind of being talked about here and there, and since it was kind of on the periphery of my awareness, it just became something I wanted to know more about, so I dabbled a bit. I bought a few things I liked, I flipped a few things I saw opportunities on. It inspired me to buy a comic book for the first time since I was a kid, and after a couple of weeks, I pretty much moved out of the Marvel cards realm. It was fun, but it wasn't personally something I really wanted to get deeper into. During those couple of weeks, though, I really enjoyed it, and I was more than happy to dig into some created content about Marvel cards and to be in that space for a period of time, just to see what it was all about. I could see how someone other than me could have done the exact same thing, but perhaps been more inspired to remain within that realm and get deeper into it. Cool, good, no problem, do your thing. I could see why you'd want to. Marvel cards are super cool, super fun. I could see why someone might want to do something similar with Star Wars cards, or NASCAR cards, or F1, or UFC, or WWE, or soccer, or celebrity cards, or freaking farming cards. Actually, I have this 2020 Allen Ginter card, which is sitting on my desk, which I've probably picked up more frequently than any other card that I own. It's just cool. And man, if I could get I love learning about permaculture and farming and gardening and companion planting. If I could get cards like this, man, I would be all over that. I'd be all over that set. That's the new big thing. I'm gonna pump it right here. Farming cards. dig into them. That's gonna be the big one. Farming cards. Get in on it now before it's too late. There's nothing wrong with people exploring this or that space and learning more about some aspects of the hobby that they may not have known much about before. That's fine. For some people, they might find a space they really love, and for others, they've learned about something new and moved on. Cool, good, no problem. Do your thing. But when every instance of discussion about some niche aspect of the hobby becomes suspect of pumping and dumping, I feel like energy is being wasted in something that is just not worth it. And it gets people questioning people's motivations in so many circumstances when there's just not reason to do that. I get it, there's nefarious crap out there. Yes, there absolutely is. But seeing it constantly and everywhere, in every circumstance, doesn't do anything any good and actually makes the really truly actually nefarious stuff much easier to remain hidden as the mobs with pitchforks chase down people who aren't doing anything. If there's something truly nefarious going on, yes, we should all know about it and share it with each other. But when it's just a game of thinking you see mud on someone's pants and calling it poop, despite the fact that it's actually just a passing shadow, then it's pointless. And it does way more harm than good. It's just backbiting at that point, especially when there is absolutely no evidence to back up a claim. And backbiting is gross. And that's what it seems like happens more often than not when people tend to point fingers and say pumping and dumping is happening these days. It's become a catch-all for pointing fingers at people they don't like for whatever reason, or suspect of nefariousness without any actual evidence. On top of all this, even if someone really truly is full on being shady with some real actual pumping and dumping action in their sports card realm, in order for it to actually work in a concrete sense for that person, they would need to be capable of herding a whole army of lemmings off that cliff. Markets don't move with people dabbling here and there. It requires a ton of people dumping in wheelbarrows upon wheelbarrows full of cash into that pump space. And that really presupposes that tons and tons of people in the hobby are mindless idiots. I don't doubt that some are, like Carl, that dude, I mean really, Carl, what an idiot. But I don't think there are nearly enough zombies for that pumping and dumping scheme to really be worth the massive effort it would be for someone to financially benefit themselves from it. If someone's got that nefarious inclination within themselves, there are all kinds of easier and more hidden ways that they could work towards benefiting themselves in a selfish way. Shill bidding, for example, which I'm going to talk about in my next video, that crap is a much bigger issue and something that we really should be thinking about solutions to. All right, all that being said, I think that's about enough of this, but this has been on my mind recently, so I wanted to share. What are your thoughts about pumping and dumping in the hobby today? Do you think it's a genuine problem or not really? I'm totally open to I'm wrong about all of this, so let us know in the comments below. Peace.